everyone. Welcome to Miraculous Mamas. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy, and we believe in empowering people through storytelling and education. I'm so glad that you are here. Since you're listening right now, make sure that you are subscribed and leave a review. You can now leave ratings on Spotify, which is really cool. Not a review, but you can leave a 5-star rating, which I would highly appreciate. It's cool that Spotify started that. And I know that on different platforms, they all kind of have their system. So make sure that you are doing that. That's a great way to promote the podcast, to share the love with me, and to help other people find out about it. I am so excited about today's episode. I have on Ria Safford, and she helps people get organized, and she is an organizer to some of the biggest celebrities, like James Charles and Chrissy Teigen. All these people have hired her to get help because she's awesome at what she does. And if you've been listening for a while, you know that I'm probably not the most organized person, especially if you listen to the Long Haul podcast before and you hear Vito and I talk about our personal lives on there, and all the things that drive him crazy about me tend to be organizational things, which having kids kind of forces you to start to be organized. That's the thing that I've definitely learned going from 1 to 2. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I don't have a system in place, it is complete chaos. Because even now, which I'll share in the episode, like with a system in place, it is just complete chaos sometimes. So, it's just, I'm working on my organizational skills. I feel like having kids has made me be more organized, and it feels good. I feel like I'm finally getting into a routine. I recorded this episode a couple months ago, so I feel like I'm still getting into a groove and getting into a routine, and it's been great. It's definitely helped me out a lot to try to maintain my life, maintain home and kids and husband and all the things that come into it, because it's definitely a balance. And I always wonder how people do it, because I don't know, do you ever just go to somebody else's house and it seems like their house is always clean and you're like, how? So if that's you, if you're that person, please send me your tips. Let me know what you're doing. If your house is just always clean, like if somebody showed up to your house unannounced, what would it look like? And I think we need to normalize the chaos a little bit too, because if you showed up unannounced to my house, it might be cleaned up, but it might not. And that's what life is, right? But all you see on like Instagram and social media are these perfectly curated kitchens and living rooms and everything's organized. And I just have to tell you, that is just not life all the time. But being organized can definitely take some of the chaos away. It can simplify your life. It can make things less stressful for you. So Ria's gonna get on the podcast and give us some of those tips and help us come up with some ideas to help in the organization department and relieve a little stress and make our lives a little bit easier. So we are going to dive into the episode. All right, everyone, I'm here with Ria Safford and little Tula. So if you hear some baby noises, she's joining me today. And I'm so excited to talk to Ria. She helps people get organized. She helps with sharing solutions for a beautiful life, all things organization, home, and everything about her, which we're excited to learn about. I'm always interested to talk to people who like get into some sort of like organization type field, because my brain is so scattered. I'm like that person that wants to be organized. Like as a kid, I would spend an hour organizing a drawer in my dresser, but then my room would be a disaster.
But you were able to do that one drawer, and I bet it made you feel so good.
Yes, but I'd love for you to start just by telling us who you are and how you became this amazing organizer, helping people all over, of all walks of life, get their life and house in order.
It has been a crazy journey for sure. And I always love sharing this part. I am not naturally wired to be an organized person. And that's my favorite thing to share, because it can be really intimidating, wanting to get organized and listening to somebody who like, that's all I know. And, everyone's brains should just think this way. I'm naturally super messy. I leave caps off of things. I leave cabinet doors open. I'm not dirty. I'm just messy. Like I'm just walking tornado. And how you're like, oh my gosh, like my brain is scattered. That is totally me. So I feel like my brain and the way that I'm wired is like 90% of our clients, but I have just put in like the practice and the effort and like just, I've really made it a point to make myself a more organized person. And that all really came to a head having children. So I got married and had my first daughter, I mean, pretty much all on top of each other. And so immediately you're just like what used to just be my stuff was now mine and my husband's, and then a bunch of stuff for a new baby. And that was crazy. I was like, oh my gosh. And I had always known how to organize. Like I'm the type of person, like when I want to do something, I do it super well. But it all came down to prioritizing it in my life. And I never did. I could help friends get dialed. I could give advice, whatever. I never cared about it enough for my own spaces, especially like in high school. I mean, I could just, like landmines in my room to get from the door to the bed, and I was fine. But then I was in this new chapter in my life, married, daughter, and I really realized like, I've got to get this together. I need to have systems in place for my sanity and to help me be the best wife, the best mom. It would help me feel like I had it together more, because I was just feeling so much more out of sorts. It was all new to me and that wasn't helping. So I really made it a point to prioritize organization in our life, our home. And I just really felt like something clicked and I figured it out. And it's almost like I had this formula that I felt like could be duplicated in other people's homes and help lift that weight. Initially my whole thought was just moms. Like I need to help moms. Moms all need help. Like this is so crazy. What an insane time. Like we just need systems. And so that's how it all really started. In 2016, I switched from a corporate job to start RiOrganize. It was an interesting conversation with my husband. I was making really good money as a commercial real estate broker. I was an industrial broker. So I was like in warehouses all day, and it was like a new job that I'd only had for that year. And here we had a new baby. So it was like a really good place for us to be in. And I was miserable, so miserable. I was not meant for corporate America. I needed to create my own schedule to have more time with my children, which looking back, I'm like, there's been so many times that I haven't been able to spend time with my kids starting this. But anyways, so I started by myself in 2016. And since then we've evolved and are now in Los Angeles and Orange County are the two main markets in Southern California. And we're in DFW in Texas and Austin. So that's been really exciting, just watching the evolution of the company and just being able to help, literally thousands of families at this point. As of like October of 2020, my husband came on.
That's awesome.
Like this is our whole life.
That's
and it's
amazing.
Totally bananas. But I do love sharing that I'm not wired this way, because I feel like, one, I hope it just feels more relatable for our clients, but like, we understand that everything else in life has taken priority. And, people calling us, especially, like that's you prioritizing it. You don't have to naturally know how to do it. And, there are tools that can really help anybody. And we work with celebrities, billionaires, athletes, everything. And it's at the end of the day, it just comes down to like the core steps of really figuring out your spaces to make whatever your situation is maintainable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's so amazing. I feel like I was like talking to myself there until you said something clicked. You're like, then something clicked.
Waiting for the click.
No, because the two biggest pet peeves of my husband is leaving cupboard doors open, and then I don't put lids all the way on something, and then he'll go to pick it up and it spills, and he's like, "Are you kidding me? Just put the lid on. Just put the lid on."
It's not even like an organization. It's like we're busy. We're busy. Like I'm on to the next. It's like I've done 3 things since I opened that cabinet. Like
right.
I've moved on.
Right.
Plus, like, don't you want to just see my day when you walk in? This tells the story.
Right. Yeah. Just kind of the walking tornado thing. But I do feel like becoming a mom kind of forces you to get a little more organized. Like before we started the podcast, I said, I was saying like we have 2 kids now, they're close in age. And I said, we're surviving. Then I said, we're thriving, because I've actually found that becoming a mom of 2, has forced me to get into a routine. And I made
Yeah.
like a schedule for myself for things to do around the house so that I don't get buried and overwhelmed. And I made it like doable. Like, actually, my sister helped me. She's the clean one. She's the type A clean person.
But still,
But
like just having the roadmap, like
right.
the whole difference, with the majority of people who aren't just like naturally, because there are people who are just like, I don't really accumulate anything and I don't like, I have a pencil and everything stays perfect. Like,
Right.
great. I'm so happy for those people.
Right.
But like, I'm not one of them. And I think it all comes down to the actual doing. And so, like, that is what you should be like patting yourself on the back for every day is like, okay, I'm showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I explain all the time is, even people paying us to come in and organize and, help them with this process. It doesn't just stay like that. Like you have to have decided, like, I'm going to make it a point to maintain these. And it's just those little habits that you start to really make it a point. Just like you're saying, it's the little things you're trying to tackle so you don't feel so buried by a huge list. It's exactly the same thing.
Right.
And with organizing, it's little things like, I'm really going to make it a point to hang the shirt back up if I'm not going to wear it. I'm just going to hang it back up. I'm going to put it on the hanger and I'm going to put it back on my rod. And that is going to be my thing that I'm working on for 2 weeks. Because eventually anything practiced enough, it is going to become a habit. But you just have to prioritize it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it sounds like something so small. Like I'm just putting the shirt back on the hanger, but it does make a huge difference over time when you're not walking in your room and there's 4 shirts on the floor,
Totally. Yes. Or 8. Or if someone like, I'm always like the chair, be careful of having the chair because everyone sets things on the chair.
Oh my gosh. Yep. We just got a
I
new
know.
rocking chair because we have one in our oldest daughter's room and we just put one in our room for Tula. And I haven't even used the rocking chair. I usually just like in the middle of the night, I just bring her into bed and nurse her. And then I haven't used the chair. Whereas with Jovi, I always did. And the chair just collects things now. It's like I throw like a pair of sweatpants that I had on. I'm like, oh, I'm going to put them back on tomorrow. Like I'll wear them before I get dressed for the day. Or if I have to get up in the middle of the night, sometimes I'll put them on because I'm cold or whatever. So it just gets thrown there and then I don't put them on the next day, and then they just stay there. And then it's like, it's a little pile.
That is my husband. Like he has like a chair that we added to our bedroom for like, because he doesn't like going to sleep in a bed that's like already hot from his body, like sitting there watching TV. So we got a chair for him. And that chair, like he like perfectly lays pants on them, but I'm like, what's the story here? I'm like, I don't know when things are dirty. I don't know if it's like we're prepping for something, but it's not like he just like covers it with mounds of stuff. It's like, 1 or 2 things, but I never know what I'm supposed to do with them. So then like me as an organizer, noticing that, like we just had somebody come by for a potential closet, like renovation. And that was one of the things that I incorporated was I need a place for my husband to hang his pants that he's worn, but like, he's not necessarily wanting to put them exactly back or like, he needs a place for that. And so recognizing your habits too, everything doesn't have to be 0 to 100 of just like, I'm totally switching the way I live my life. Like recognize what you're naturally doing and figure out how just like the smallest thing could help that. Like my husband was regularly setting his wallet, keys, sunglasses, all of them on this table right behind our couch that I like, felt like I made look really pretty. So I got this like beautiful, like mahogany wood box. And immediately he puts all that. He's like, I love this box. Something so simple, but it keeps it like, keeps things looking decorative and also is super functionable. And like me recognizing like, okay, I've tried to have him set these things other places and they're not going anywhere else. So how can I make this work right here and kind of find a happy medium and create a home for it? And it's been awesome.
We will be right back. So we were talking about being organized this episode, and I have a lot of parties to go to this summer, and I've agreed to bring something, right? It's like, okay, can you bring an app or a side dish or a dessert? And do you know what can make that party so amazing is if you show up with a Milk Bar cake, and it will be delivered right to your door so you don't have to try to get all the ingredients, whip something up, and you're going to be the hit of the party. And everyone's going to love it. I recently just tried the strawberry shortcake and it was So good. They also have these amazing cake truffles right now as well. And I will or will not admit that I ate all of them that I ordered because they were so good. Milk Bar is the perfect gift for anyone or everyone in your life, from birthdays to graduations. We all have so much going on, summer cookouts, or even just because. No scrambling around trying to whip something up. You can just go online and order Milk Bar, and you can even get it overnight delivery nationwide, which is awesome because sometimes you're like, oh crap, I have a party this weekend and I'm supposed to bring this thing. What can I bring? Milk Bar has your back. And like I said, I did the strawberry shortcake one, got it for my mom's birthday. It was so good. I cannot recommend that one highly enough, but they have a bunch of different flavors online that you can choose from. So right now, they have a special limited time offer. Get $10 off any order of $50 or more when you go to milkbarstore.com/mamas. You'll get $10 off an order of $50 by going to milkbarstore.com/mamas. That's milkbarstore.com/mamas.
Man, I got to start recognizing those patterns because I relate to your husband. It's like I wore these sweatpants, like I took a shower before bed, but I put the sweatpants on to like read, nurse the baby, whatever, but I took them off. So they're not dirty, but I don't want to put them back with the clean stuff. But you know what I mean? There's like that middle.
But like you could, because you're like, well, I guess I want to wear them. So like, why? So then it's something of like, maybe there's an area that you're kind of clearing in your closet of like your where next,
right?
Like kind of like in the pantry, you can create kind of like eat first bins of, like this is the stuff that might be going bad or whatever. So like, be sure to bang this out first. Same with your closet of just like, hey, like the lightly worn, like it could just be like a bin where it's like your lightly worn bin to where you remember to wear those again. And like, that might not be the solution, but you might be like, oh, but let me try this. And it's going to be a little bit of trial and error, but then you'll find something that works that isn't giving you a headache of, oh, why do I keep putting it there? Like taking your energy.
Right. Well, I love that you said taking your energy because I feel like that's what little messes do, because then they turn into big messes. And I've heard over and over that like a cluttered space is a cluttered mind too. And I know that that's how I function, is like I said, when things would start to build up, I'd be overwhelmed just by a few things. And then it's the paralysis by analysis. It's like, I have so much to do. I can't even move. I don't know where to start.
When you do it, it's so fast. And you're like, why didn't I just do this? Like, I'm the queen of that. Like I'm the queen of the pile of clean clothes that I set on my floor to sleep, and I put back up the next day to put it away. And then I set it on my floor to sleep.
Like, you're like, why didn't I just put it away?
I do this for a living, and I still have to like show up and make myself do things every day. You have to.
Right.
It's just like, we're all drowning. Let's just have all of our stuff like in a place that makes us happy, and I always tell moms, like, it's like the oxygen mask effect of putting yours on first, before everyone else. Like when you're getting up, you're immediately probably going into your bathroom. That space should make you feel so good. That's literally that going from your room to your bathroom. That moment is setting the tone for your entire day. So if you're like, oh, I want to like tweeze my eyebrows, and you open a drawer and it's a complete dumpster fire and you can't find anything, whether consciously or subconsciously, like you're ticked. Like that has like off-centered you for the day. And it's taking time and energy away from just like, okay, if you just opened your drawer, grabbed your tweezers, did what you need to do, moved on. Like your drawers and like your spaces, those shouldn't be a thought in your day. It shouldn't be taking up any of your mental space. They should be set up in a way that like assists you in your day. Creating a routine ready space that you're just flowing through, getting exactly what you need, living your life.
Right. Yeah, that makes so much
Easier
sense.
said than done.
I know. Now I'm just picturing all my bathroom drawers. I'm like, oh, dang.
And like one drawer at a time, which I feel like I give conflicting things. So I'm like, oh, you can just go one at a time. But the most important thing is that you're getting all similar things together. So like, if you're like, okay, I want to go through my bathroom drawer, going through one drawer, it might be that you have like tools like tweezers or, nail cutters, like in multiple spaces. Like you want to be sure that you're assessing all of it at once. You might realize, why do I have so many of these? Or, oh my gosh, I'm out of this. Or, you know what, I do want to be using this every day, and that should be in this drawer. and kind of assessing any of your spaces by the way that you use these items. Your easiest to reach spaces within whatever room you're in should be your most used items.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in a bathroom, like certain things don't have to be with other things. It needs to make sense for you. So your top drawer might just be, these are my daily essentials. And it's kind of like a mix of everything,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what makes sense. It has, maybe the two things of skincare that you use regularly and your cleanser, but then there's a whole other, like the rest of your skincare section.
Mm-hmm.
They don't all have to be together. You want it to make sense for like how you think of things and how you're grabbing them and using them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah. Well, I love that
Like, your mind, like,
I know.
yes.
It's like that thing on Instagram now where it's like calculating my whatever,
Yes.
like all those videos. Yeah.
What if it's like butterflies in the sky?
Yeah.
I know
I'm
exactly
like
what you're talking about.
trying to figure it all out. Yes. I definitely have to go through my drawers. Because that makes total sense. That why would you not have things that you use right there, or things that make sense that they go together instead of like nail clippers in 5 different places in the house and you can never find any of them.
Right. Like creating a home base. And even for kids, I imagine you would have a lot of listeners with kids. So I'll share a couple of things on that. A lot of people ask about the toys, like how they just like end up everywhere in the house. And my approach, like personally with my kids, has always been like their rooms aren't where they're playing. But I will say that we also have an area that I can call the playroom, and not everybody has that. So then it's, what's a different solution we can do there. But having some sort of home base, whether it is a playroom or a closet, something that houses the toys, but then, there can be a basket or 2 baskets downstairs in the living room that still get played with. But at the end of the day, the main home is this home base for all the toys, because things can just start to get crazy. There's just toys everywhere, and it's kind of hard to make sense of it. It's honestly hard to know how much you actually have. And the more that you're keeping everything together, even like overstocks, like, having extra shampoos and toothpaste and all of that. It used to be that we were doing like all the overstocks within the spaces that they belonged. And now we've pivoted to having, like, I'm calling it like the CVS in your home, to where it's one place where all the overstock lives, so that you know exactly how much you have left, versus like, okay, I think there's some in each of these rooms. It really helps you know what you have. And our approach with, at RiOrganize, like with our clients, or what I share on our Instagram, is more importantly than like, you shouldn't own anything. Like everything should just be clean. It's, you should just know what you have.
Yeah.
And like so many of us, it's like, if I were to go up to like a random closet or whatever in your house, like, could you tell me what's on the top shelf? Could you tell me what's like on the bottom tucked away? Could you tell me what's in your home? And just when you're reintroduced to your items, you can make those decisions of like, okay, does this serve any purpose for me anymore? Let's move along. And it's okay to keep things, but let's make sure that it makes sense within the space you're wanting them to live.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure everybody listening can relate to like going out and buying something, then coming home and realizing like, oh my gosh, I already have like 3 bottles of this. Like, what am I doing?
Yes. And once you have that routine, like especially like a pantry, like your pantry should be set up in a way that you can take a picture and know exactly what you're running low on. Like that's one of the biggest things that I say, is to shop for the space you have, not for the space you want. So if you have like a cabinet pantry or, a little reach in or whatever, you should not be bulk buying all the things if you have nowhere to put it. Like, I can't tell you how many clients we've had where they're like, but we get all of this. I'm like, but you can't, unless we're going to create another area to house all of this. Because there's also a price for peace, right? Like, okay, maybe you're losing out on a huge giant bulk deal, but if there's nowhere for it to be, like, it's causing you way more stress. So for some people, it might make more sense to do weekly grocery trips, or it's okay, let's designate, some shelving in the garage for your overstock, so that things can keep moving, but your main area isn't so overwhelming.
Right.
It's just assessing all the things.
I know. I'm like mentally going through all of my home now.
I know. I literally see your brain like working as I talk. I love it.
I know. Well, because I am in that space that, like I said, I think having 2 kids, it's made me realize that I have to be organized. And it's like maybe because now I'm like, oh, well, I have to, with one kid, you can just kind of whatever, like lounge around, whatever. But now that I have two, I'm like, I have to get up, I have to go, we have to get out the door. So I need to know where her hat, coats, and boots are. Like, like I have to, because it takes us an hour to leave the house with two kids right now. So searching for things, running around, looking for like, where did her hat go? Where did, because we live outside Chicago, so we have all the seasons. So it's like we finally have like kind of a warm day today, but it's like you have to know where things are because I think everyone listening also can like relate to that. You're trying to get out the door and then you're searching for that one thing and then you get so stressed out. Your kids are waiting, you're like trying to get out. Right. And then it just puts you in that like, mode. And then you're like, I'm late. It's so stressful.
And it all comes down to, like I was mentioning before, of like, what are the natural habits? So I was experiencing those same pain points. I was keeping the kids' shoes in their respective rooms. And I was just noticing like, it was like this whole thing for shoes to make it back upstairs. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn this downstairs closet. I put like 2 stacked on top of each other, like shoe cubbies. So it's all shoe cubbies there. So like all their like regularly grabbed shoes are there. And then I added an inside of the door unit with all of these baskets. So it has all of their socks. I'm like, their socks are not living in their room anymore. Yeah. Like it was just like this light bulb for me of like, all the socks are going to live down here. All their seasonal stuff, anything hat, anything, whatever. Cause I'm in Texas, but we weirdly had like ice freezes and it was bananas over here. Umbrellas. I even started putting like certain activity stuff. Like my daughter's like Taekwondo, all of the stuff. It's just like anything that I was stressed out searching for, that's what that closet became. And it has been a lifesaver. Mm-hmm. Just because I'm like, I know that I always want all of these things. Like I want to know exactly where these things are. Mm-hmm. And it's been next level.
Yeah. Yeah. The socks. It's always like, where are your socks?
Always the socks. And then like, I started getting just all the same socks of, so then you're not like, cause I was like, where's the other pink one with the stripes and the stars and the unicorns and matching them? And I'm like, where are these all going versus just all white socks? Everything has a buddy, whatever. Mm-hmm. Little things like that have definitely saved my sanity or what's left of it.
Mm-hmm. We will be right back to this episode. Do you want beautiful hair with minimal effort? I know that I do. And Kitsch feels the same way. They've upgraded familiar products into game-changing essentials that people just swear by. From satin pillowcases to time-saving towels, Kitsch knows hair care doesn't stop in the shower. Their satin pillowcases are really cool. One thing that I learned actually from them was how much of the things that like we're putting in our hair and on our face is just getting absorbed into our pillowcases, which is actually gross. And then it can get into your pillow and it's impossible to really wash your pillow. But these satin pillowcases protect that, and they're protecting your hair from getting roughed up on cotton pillowcases and your skin. So a few of their best sellers are the satin pillowcases, caps, and eye masks. Satin is vegan and cruelty-free, not like silk, which comes from the silkworms. They have their shampoo and conditioner bars. Yes, that's bars. So they are bottle-free beauty, heatless satin curling rollers, so you can say goodbye to heat damage. And literally, these things are such a hit. There's people throwing away their $600 curlers for these heatless satin curling rollers. They have their quick dry hair towels, and don't forget their classic hair ties and scrunchies, which is what the company started with, this female operated company, which is amazing. What I'm really into right now are the shampoo and conditioner bars, the bottle free beauty. You know that I am trying to reduce any type of plastic that I'm buying or anything like that. So I love that they have all these different options, and their really cool rack that you can put in your shower. So you can put your soap, your shampoo bar, your conditioner bar, all on this cute little rack. Talk about being organized, right in your shower, and then you don't have all these bottles taking up space. It is so nice. Kitsch is offering you guys 30% off your entire order at mykitsch.com/mamas. That's right, 30% off anything and everything at mykitsch, spelled MYKITCH mykitsch.com/mamas. One more time, mykitsch.com/mamas for 30% off your order. Make sure you go check it out.
So, I mean, I feel like we're kind of all the talking points that I wanted to talk about. I haven't like asked you directly, but I feel like we're talking about them anyways.
Talking through it.
Yes.
I love it.
So how do you I feel like the problem is, so like our laundry room, for example, we'll clean it, we'll organize it, but it gets so messy so easily. Like not with clothes, but like it's where we walk in. So we do have like a little basket that we throw our keys, wallet, all of that. But then you bring the mail in and it gets tossed there. And then, it's just like a random blanket for the baby and my carrier that I put her in sometimes. It's just like random things just end up piling up on the cupboard. And you can never keep it clean.
So is there like a landing point kind of?
Yeah, we have like a long cupboard in there. And then I have a closet that has shoes. And then each one of us has a basket for like hats, scarves, whatever, like gloves, things like that. We each have a basket in there. But like it just like it's impossible. I feel like we'll clean the laundry room, we're like, yes, and then my husband's like, all right, let's keep it this way, and like 2 days later I'm like, how is it a disaster? Like, I feel like a lot of people listening like relates to that too. Like you get the space cleaned and then you feel defeated because it easily, like, within a day or two it's like, what the heck, I swear this was spotless, like not too long ago, and now I feel like I did nothing.
So I mean, baskets, obviously baskets are wonderful. We use baskets everywhere. There's a catch-22 there because it's just inviting things.
Yeah, you have to dig in it.
So like, me just listening to what you're saying, if the one basket, like if it is solely keys, do you feel like it is just keys that you guys are putting in there?
No.
Like, should it be?
Maybe.
Because if it should be, then I would add little hooks that it's like, 'cause nothing else can go there. You can't be like throwing all your stuff on those hooks, right? It's like, this is just where our keys go. And this is all part of that. Okay, we need to like adjust the habits a little bit. Like the mail really never needs to sit anywhere. Yeah, it's like we can figure out immediately. Like, I think so. I'm sure there's a trash can in there. Mm-hmm. And even something simple as like, this week, every time I bring the mail in, I'm immediately throwing things away. And if I'm keeping it, that's because it's an actionable item. So take it to your office, take a picture of it, do whatever you need to do. But mail never really like needs to be around anymore. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe the paperwork is getting crazy.
Yeah, the paperwork is our thing too. It's like, this needs to go in the filing cabinet. This needs to go in the filing cabinet. This needs, for like insurance or whatever.
Yes. And then maybe it just it's piles getting a little desktop filing thing, which the RiOrganize one at Target is available. There is like to where that's kind of like your filing before taking it to your filing system. If you're like, okay, look, perfect world, it's like your filing system's just there. You're doing everything at once and it's just getting done. Obviously that's hard to do. So you're like, okay, I'm always saving, phone related stuff, kid related stuff, medical related stuff. Just having something that's maybe instead of the basket that was collecting all of your keys, because you're hanging those up on your wall, maybe there's just a little desktop, filing thing with 4 folders in it with your little labels. Because especially when things are labels, it's just another way to hold you accountable. Mm-hmm. So especially like, it'll always be a reminder of like, okay, I put this here to like hold me accountable, to like put these away. And again, it's going to be trial and error. But if you're noticing, if it's just not staying, there's a reason. Mm-hmm. So it's figuring out those little things. Maybe it's a hook for the baby carrier. Mm-hmm. Just like these little simple additions that could really, really help. The over-the-door organizer, I'm telling you, like it's literally like, it's like tension. So you don't have to screw it in. But you can add all these different baskets and put labels on them to where those can hold a whole new category of things. And the more that something has a designated space to go into, the less it's going to feel cluttered visually of just anything out. Like when you're like, it's getting crazy, like take a moment and you're like, what is out and why is it out? Like, is there not a place for it? Can I create a place for it? Does this not even belong in the laundry room to begin with? Mm-hmm. Or do we need to really designate a home? Like my kids were always dropping their backpacks right by our door from the garage. So I had my husband add hooks there. Cause I'm like, they still end up on the floor all the time. And I at least have a hook to put them on. But just making little changes to see if that helps.
Mm-hmm.
Is that helpful?
No, that's very
Obviously,
helpful.
I'm like totally visualing like a random laundry room that maybe is nothing like yours, but feel free to always like send me pictures like, okay, this is what I mean. What are your thoughts here? Because I love giving product suggestions.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean that definitely makes sense. And it is finding a home for things so then you just know where it goes. Because I feel like that's like the hard part
Yes.
too, is like I don't even know where this goes. So how do you feel? What's your thought on junk drawers? I feel like every home has
So
a junk drawer.
they do. And one thing that I made a point to do, I mean, pretty early on when I got started, was changing the name of it. So we call it an essentials drawer. Because in my head, by calling it a junk drawer, you're just inviting junk. Like I'm like, oh, well, that's what this is. Why wouldn't I just throw junk in here all day long? So instead, like reframe it to be your essentials drawer. And it really makes you think of like, what do I actually need here? Like, like the whole, like, it's always like the gum wrappers, the receipt, the stuff that's like, you don't want to walk all the way to the trash can. So you just swipe it in there and shut it closed. And it just becomes this disaster. And I feel like because we've just been wired that that's what that drawer is, a rogue menu, some chopsticks. It's like everyone has the most random stuff in there. And I feel like the more that you're like, okay, what do I actually need here? Scissors. I know that I need a Sharpie for when I'm labeling the kids' stuff, or, here are their little labels for their school thing, whatever. That's what that drawer should be.
Mm-hmm.
An extra charger, whatever you're noticing, like, okay, I really do always need this in this space. Like,
Yeah.
candle lighters make sense in our kitchen essentials drawer because I'm like, I feel like I always want to like light candles just everywhere. So I just want that all over the house. But yeah, just starting with that, like that is a very easy drawer to tackle when you're like feeling like, okay, I just want to start organizing in my house. Like that is a good one to start with because it usually has nothing to do with the rest of that space. So it really is its own isolated space and you are tackling it as a whole, which I always try to encourage. So just literally take everything out and maybe even take a picture of how it was so you can remember, clean the drawer and just be like, okay, what do I actually need in here? And then you're going to have some other stuff left on the counter and you're going to be like, does this go somewhere else in the house? Is this trash? Is this something I was supposed to like, was I supposed to call somebody? Like whatever it is. But all of that needs to go away. And whatever's in that drawer, like you're only setting things in the drawer that like, I really need this down here. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have drawer organizers, then that's when you get product. Like it's not something where you're shopping and you're like, oh, I see these drawer organizers. I know I need to tackle that drawer in my kitchen. Let me buy these. Don't do it that way. Do it the other way where you already like, okay, I know I have the scissors. I have this, a quick measurement. It doesn't have to be like so, a stressful thing of just like, okay, I know I have 15 inches, 19 inches, whatever. And then grabbing some drawer organizers to really solidify the home of those items. Mm-hmm. And you can even get totally crazy and put little labels on the insides of all the drawer organizers where it's like, this is where the freaking scissors go.
Right.
Because it is like a weird feeling when you open it, you're holding scissors and like, you're not going to set it where it says like gum.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like, it's an extra way of being like, hold on, is that where that goes? And then it just helps you create those habits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like there's always the random stuff though that like doesn't have a home and then you have to find one. So then you just throw it back in the drawer. You know what I mean? It's like, yes. Oh, we need a place for like receipts that I don't know. But I get like we've been redoing our home, right? So like yes. Stuff that like large purchases that we've had to buy. Yes. And it's like, okay, I need, this receipt, but then I don't need it for long. So we just want to make sure like it looks good at whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then we can get rid of yes. it. But you're like in the in-between, and then you're like, whatever. Totally. And then it just ends up back somewhere.
And that's something where like I was saving, my daughter wanted me to save all the notes that I gave her for kindergarten, like all of her lunch notes. Mm-hmm. So even just getting like, one of those clear folders, you can get a Ziploc bag and just like label it. Like that's still creating a home for it. Mm-hmm. So I still had it in this drawer of like where our bar is. One of those drawers was literally just those types of things. It had manuals for stuff that we had just gotten. There's no rules for where things have to live. It just needs to be somewhere that you're going to remember it's there and that you're able to maintain it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like that, I think just adding something as simple as like a little like Ziploc type bag to home those items just gives you the sense of like, okay, all of this is with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the less that you're just throwing things all willy-nilly everywhere, you'll just feel like, okay, like everything I'm doing, this feels good.
Mm-hmm.
This feels good.
Right. I feel like that's a what's the show now? I can't think of it. Dang it. Where they're like, if you don't feel fabulous in it, then get rid of it. My husband, Queer Eye.
Oh yeah. But that's really
I'm like,
the approach with everything. Like I always tell people, like, if you like something or need it or use it, whatever, like it's really easy to answer that. Like, yes. Oh yeah, for sure. No, use it all the time. So like when people are like, I'm always like, okay, like
you're thinking too
just
long.
Told me.
Right.
Yeah. Like it should just be really easy to know if something is like serving a purpose in your life or not. Like not everything's going to, spark joy and give you a warm and fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's like, diaper pail inserts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, but it's like, yeah, I need that. Like that is necessary. But you might find diaper pail inserts that are like, oh wait, this is like 2 diaper pails ago and I don't have this kind anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It can go on to a better home.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And just, piece by piece, even if you can't tackle an entire organization project at once, just start understanding your stuff, because just purging regularly is one, just so therapeutic, but it's just how we were talking about, like piece by piece, and it's not so overwhelming. I am constantly like, I'm really on top of it when it comes to my kids stuff. Like I always save mine, I feel like, for the end, even though I was saying like we need to put our spaces first to make us feel good. I need to practice what I preach. But my kids, like there are so many systems in place for their rooms to not feel insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm like folding laundry, I'm like, okay, wait, this is totally too small for sis now. I have these bins in their closets, too small, too big. So if it's too small, I put it in there. If it's something that is too big for my one daughter, but the other daughter's grown out of it, like I have a whole bin of stuff that's ready when she goes up the next size.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like everything's always going somewhere, and it's clearing space for the stuff they're using now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want them to be able to open any drawer, go into their closet, and everything fits them.
Mm-hmm.
So I created systems around that. And my son, who's our last child, there's anything that he's grown out of, I'm saving it. And once that bin gets to the top, then I give it to my sister-in-law, who's literally having boys in like a week and a half.
Yeah.
It's like, that's like my system. And once it hits the top, I always know. So like, even in your closet, it could be like, okay, I'm over this top. Like every time I try this on, I hate it. You have a bin that's ready. And once it hits the top, it's ready for donate, or maybe you have like a girlfriend you give it to, or wherever it goes. But you'll just get really used to like constantly assessing your things and like just get rid of them. And you can't feel guilt because you'll feel so much better.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I get to trash everything. Like there's, donations, giving to friends, selling, whatever it is. But you really just want whatever's in your home to be what you want in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I do have a thing of too small for my daughter. The older one that's like growing out of, I have a tub, like a bin in her closet that I like start putting stuff in, because then I'll put it away until the next daughter fits in it. But for my room, I do feel like I'm always like decluttering clothes. I need to declutter other things, but I just have like a giant trash bag on the floor in my closet that I like add to.
Works.
But it doesn't, but it's not like you go in your room and there's a trash bag. You know what I mean? Sure. Like, I feel like a bin is a better idea.
Like maybe it's time to graduate.
Yeah.
To something a little more sturdy, a little more visually appealing, but that's still like that habit is there. And that's what matters.
Like,
so switching up what it lives in.
Right. What do you tell people that like, okay, so items that take up space in your kitchen, because kitchenware is huge. Like some of those things are huge. And I have a juicer and a food processor that I never really use, but they're like expensive. So I don't want to have to rebuy if I do use more, but I want it for like the juicer for like the one time a year I use it.
Right.
Like but these things take up so much space.
So obviously everything is a bit of a case by case depending on the type of storage that you have.
Yeah.
Like there are so many, walk-in pantries we've done where half of it we're able to designate to appliances like the ones you're talking about. I don't have an overly large kitchen by any means, but I feel like we just don't have a ton of kitchen stuff to where I gained a lot of cabinet space. So like even things like my air fryer, I mean, it stays out for pretty extended amounts of time, but like I have a place for it below the stove. So it's like can be out of the way. I used to, now we got a bigger toaster, but when we had a smaller one, like I kept it down in the cabinet and I literally brought it out every day because that like was worth it to me. You know, the KitchenAid, we have like this kind of like off to the side closet, which has been a dream to be able to add things to. But not everybody has that. So it's really figuring out like, okay, how much of a headache is it on the counter? Can I sacrifice space for something else to create a home down below? Because yeah, if it's like this like awkward grab you have to do once a year, who cares?
Right.
Like you just need a place for it. And honestly, you could even have, you know, like add a rack in your garage and you can have stuff that lives in there if you have to, or if you're like, wait, there's like totally this closet we don't use. Like, again, there are no rules. I mean, if it makes sense for you, then that's all that it needs to be. But like kind of reassessing your space to figure out like, okay, I don't even know what this is in this one cabinet. Like this could totally be where my juicer goes.
Right.
I would say start there. And then you just have to get creative, especially if it's not something you want to live on your counters. So I'm kind of the same. I like try to, I definitely have stuff on my counters, but like the air fryer and stuff, like they're so massive.
Right. No.
Takes away from my kitchen.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, our dream would be to like I said, we've been redoing our home. We redid the outside and then now we're going to slowly redo the inside. And our dream would be to have like a larger pantry because we kind of have like a narrow cupboard. So things are back there that I don't even know. Right. I don't know what's in the back of my pantry. Or in that cupboard, you know, that's what happens to me. I'll be like, I need a can of crushed tomatoes. Then I go get it. And then I'm like, I have 3 back here. Like, what the heck?
It's always there. And I don't know, do your shelves pull out?
So the ones underneath our stove do. That's usually where I keep our, like the pans, the pots, whatever, and I can pull them out. But other than that, no, all the other ones don't.
If it was going to be like a pretty extended amount of time for your pantry, it's worth doing something like adding those, which they don't have to be these like custom pull-out drawers. I mean, places like Amazon, the Container Store, probably Bed Bath & Beyond, like there are ones that you can just literally screw in yourself. The whole goal is to be able to use this, like you want to be able to use all the space that you have, but it gets really hard to manage what's back there when it's deep. And so to be able to pull it out and make anything in the back just as accessible will be a game changer. So I would definitely assess if that's like really far out, because that's like my number one thing I always suggest for people with like deep, narrow pantries is let's make these pullouts.
Yeah, that would definitely be helpful. And then there's always like the random things that you get for like a recipe that's like 1/4 a cup of buckwheat flour. And then you never use buckwheat flour again. And you're like, I don't want to get rid of it. What if I need another 1/4 of a cup, but it's just going to sit here till it's been expired for 2 years?
And that's literally like, you can even try having a little basket that says like random recipe one-offs.
Right.
Like just anything that would make sense to you. I've seen arrowroot, ghee. I mean, because I just, no, I'm totally in that boat. Those are all in one bin together.
Right.
Because I don't need like the ghee with like other butters and stuff like that. Cause I know like these, sometimes I'll call them like specialty cooking or specialty, you know, baking items, but just creating one space where, you know, like, okay, I know that anything random that a recipe is calling for, if I have it, it's here. If it's not in here, I don't have it.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah. I feel like people listening are probably like, okay, these are like such amazing tips. Oh, this makes sense. But like, I wouldn't even know where to start. What would you say to those?
Start with your junk drawer.
Yeah, the junk drawer.
And then from that moment on, it will be your essentials drawer.
True.
So I swear, just calling it a junk drawer. I'm like, I want to just throw junk in here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Ours always ends up with like a random, there's like a screwdriver. There's, oh my gosh, my daughter can reach it now. She opens it and she reaches in blindly. She took out a box cutter the other day and I was like, oh my God. Like I took it and I'm like, oh, okay, thankfully you didn't grab the razor blade end. Like, I'm like, this drawer is a complete hazard.
Right.
Like, it's a hazardous. We can't live like this.
I was doing my hair one morning and usually my son's just like sitting, like the girls go to school earlier than him. So he's like just eating, you know, maybe doing like an iPad game. And I hear like tinking sounds or like clinking. I'm like, that's weird. And I go out there and like what is it? The chef knife, like the biggest knife.
Oh
He
my
had
God.
wanted a little like cuties orange. So he got the cuties orange from the fridge and had stabbed it with that knife. And he was like, Mommy, you want orange? Like, I was like, don't move, don't even. Like, it was, and that's not even like, that shouldn't have been accessible to him. Like, he just like pulled a chair over. I'm like, how long have I been gone for?
Mm-hmm.
There's always those mom moments where you're like, oh my gosh, like I would be taken in for this. This is
Right.
crazy.
Right. But then you like learn your lesson. You're like, okay, I have to make sure that there's nothing in here that she can reach through and grab, or I need to make sure that this is
Yes.
securely child proofed.
It's a lock. Exactly. And like especially the screwdriver, like that's, as kids get older, like nothing has been more necessary than that like smaller than normal screwdriver that opens like every kid toy. It is like the teeniest. It's insane, but that's very necessary. Batteries, always necessary. But even our batteries like live in our office. They don't live over there.
Right.
So it's like only stuff that truly, like scissors are a big thing. Like I'm always looking for scissors. That is something that like truly had to live over there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm also out of like the grabbing phase, which is good.
Yeah. Just randomly grabbing stuff.
I just have like, I feel like as a mom, you're like wanting to get through these like terrifying windows, but there's just a new terrifying window waiting for you. It's like, it's all just the best, worst thing ever. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like now I'm like, okay, I only have one more that like needs to be able to swim. And then it's like, then that won't be a fear anymore. But then it's like, what, eventually it's all the other things.
Right. Yeah. I know. It's, yeah, like you said, it's the best
Terrible,
worst.
beautiful
It's
job.
like, yeah, terrible, beautiful job.
I'm like, why would I like do this to myself? I've had moments of just breaking down to my husband of just like, I love them too much. Like it hurts me. I'm like, everything hurts me and this is never going to go away. Like we're just like, we're here just in pain.
Right.
But like so happy. It's like such a weird thing to explain. And it's like, we choose to do this, but it's the best.
I feel like you described it really well because I've had a hard time. Like, it's like you love them so much, you just can't bear for like anything bad to happen, you know, and like all these. So then, it's like you want to make sure you're doing everything you can to make sure that they're protected and loved and secured, but they're also going to experience life, and you want them to have life experiences. And it's like,
it's like I find myself wanting to like, it's like I don't want them to experience certain things, but like I know like heartbreak and you know, my oldest is 7 years old and like this is her first like true best friend. And she's moving at the end of the school year. And like my daughter's devastated, like doesn't even want school to end, doesn't want summer to come because that means her best friend's leaving. And I'm just like, oh, I'm like, I never want my kids in pain. But those are all such necessary things for us to experience. And it's just like, no. And as you get into school years and stuff and like, you know, kids are going to be jerks. And I'm just like, I don't know how I'm going to handle all that.
I
like,
know.
Oh, no. It's the worst. You just want like a cloud. I just want my kids to live on this like beautiful, happy cloud forever. And I know that's not reality, but we just have to do the best we can while we can. Because eventually it's like, we just don't have that much control over it.
Right.
Motherhood, man.
I know. I always say it's a trip. It's such a trip.
It's such a trip.
Speaking of motherhood, how are you helping your kids be organized? I know you're helping put systems in place, but for people listening who's like, my kids' room's like always a disaster. They sometimes pick up stuff, sometimes they help, sometimes they don't, or you know, like just little things to maybe give your kid a job or a role or whatever you do. What do you do?
So a little thing that we suggest for like anybody's dresser or closet space is file folding clothes. And not just because like it looks beautiful, but it really allows you to see everything and allows you to grab things very easily. You always want it to have like the fold up. So it's like one piece where if you put it upside down, it's like all, you can't tell what's going on. It looks crazy. This is something where, I mean, my kids as young as 18 months, I mean, we're just opening drawers and like could pick out their stuff. Like I've had them picking out their own clothes since a super, super young age. And it's, I mean, now, you know, my youngest is 3, but it's like, hey, grab your jammies. He knows exactly what drawer to go to. I mean, it doesn't cause this whole mess. Like, were there phases where they were just pulling everything out? Of course.
Mm-hmm.
But like so many of those things are just seasons that we have to bear, and they come and go so quickly in the grand scheme of life. So now it's, you know, they're able to find their things really easily. Like, are my kids like folding and putting away their stuff? We're not there yet, but they're able to maintain their spaces. Or if things are to be put away, they know exactly where things go. Like, my son is super particular, and like, you know, his bathroom door has to be shut and the closet door has to be shut. If there's like a pair of his shorts on the ground, he'll pick it up and put it into his hamper. It's like, it's cool when I see like, wow, he really knows where all these things belong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing that's helped tremendously maintain their rooms is that it isn't a big play area for them.
Right.
Like, it truly is where they get dressed, go to sleep, maybe have quiet time. Now, of course, as my girls are getting older, 5 and 7, like they want their American Girl dolls to live in there. So like things are definitely starting to work their way in, but in the grand scheme of like playing, it's not where I'm like trying to encourage them to do it. And I think that that's helped a ton also. And then another thing I've had them doing since really early on is purging with me. You know, I know that it's really easy to be like, oh my gosh, like I could just get rid of stuff and they'd never know. And I'm definitely guilty for those moments too. But you know, early on when I was first doing it just by myself and working for family friends, and they would be like, oh my gosh, bring these to your girls, or, you know, my daughter's too old now, my girls got to experience firsthand like what it felt like for someone else to decide they didn't need something anymore, and they got to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, instead of just being like, you guys have too much, we need to get rid of stuff, it's like, hey, like we don't use all of this. Okay, now like we'll take everything out and seriously assess every toy. Like, I will hold everything up. And I'm just like, what do we want to choose for other little boys and girls to enjoy? And it makes them feel good, like making those decisions of knowing that they're going to other kids to play with, just like they got to play with someone else's toys. So purging is something I pretty regularly do. I always encourage it, you know, before major holidays, before birthdays. Like, you just want to have like a good grasp on the toy situation before more is about to enter your home, because it gets bananas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
These toys.
Yeah, I know. We've realized it even with one. I'm like, how does this kid have so much crap?
It's so crazy. And everything just gets smaller and smaller. Like, it's so weird. Everything's like this like secret mystery ball, and there's all these like little mini shoes. And I don't know. Everything's a joking hazard. I'm like, this is insane.
Right. Yeah. And I like how you talked about, first of all, I've never done the file folding thing, so I need to look
That's
into
major.
that. Yeah.
Because then you're not searching. Like, think about just the mess that's made. So like, we file fold. So like my kids' drawers, file folded. I have dividers in between, so it keeps structure.
Mm-hmm.
Dividers I always encourage because it helps just keep things where they are. And then I even have the insides of the drawers labeled. So it says Landry's PJs, Landry's t-shirts,
Mm-hmm.
Landry's shorts. And then because so my 5 and 7-year-olds share a dresser and share a closet. So the left side is my older daughter, the right side is my younger daughter. And it works. And then in their closet, it's split also left side and right side. And it's been like very, very, very manageable. But the file fold, it just makes everything an option, or else you really do just keep wearing the same couple things that are on top every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. You do not know what's on the bottom, and then you have to take everything off to get to it. Yeah, it makes sense.
It'll feel so good. Oh my gosh, that should be like the one thing you do.
Yeah.
Like day or tomorrow, like just you'll be like, oh my God, it's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best. And really, like, you can start showing like, oh my gosh, okay, pick your shirt, pick what you want. Like, and it makes it easy and enjoyable for them. And it really is a good maintainable system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love before, like when you talked about like setting up like even the pantry or whatever, like don't overstock things, because I know that that's like also why I don't know what's in my cupboard, because I mean, I have pasta in there that I bought 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
Be fine. Like, just like resetting. Like, this is your like guilt-free pass to just reset your space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we'll go through closets, and obviously like somebody went through like a keto phase, but they're not doing it anymore, or not closets, pantries. it's like there are certain things that like we try out and it doesn't always work and it doesn't need to be in there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or, if in your space, you're like, oh, I don't feel like I have a ton of storage, but maybe there's a whole shelf dedicated to like emergency foods, like get it out of there,
Mm-hmm.
literally anywhere else. Because if it's not something you're grabbing regularly, it doesn't need to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you'd be surprised at like, okay, these truly are my regular go-tos, and that you can store the not often somewhere else, and that's okay.
Right. Mm-hmm. Man, I know my husband's going to listen to this and be like, see?
I promise you're just going to start like looking at your things differently. You're like, yeah.
Right.
And once you start.
No, I was going to say, I love that, like you said that too, because you do, like how you said, don't you want to see my story from my day? Like it does tell a story. It's like, okay, if I'm always setting this thing here, if I'm always searching for this one thing, if I can never find this, if this thing just always ends up in this place, like maybe it needs a new place. Like that makes sense. Just like paying attention to where things fall during the day.
Totally. Like if you have, the kid's hat somewhere and you're like, gosh, but they're always by the other door. Like if you're constantly having to trek things to where you think they're supposed to live, change the home.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That was my kids with their shoes. I was like, okay, why am I doing this to myself? I mean, these shoes are never, ever making it upstairs.
Right.
Ever. Socks, I never knew where anything was. It was insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, something about socks especially is just putting those in one area made a huge difference. I swear, like I wish I like actually timed how long it took us to get out of the house before I did that and how long it took after, because it was mind blowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Such a good feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Now, like you said, I'm just like calculating everything. I'm like, wait, where should I put all the like restock the diaper bag? Like, you know what I mean? Like trying to like figure it out in my mind. But I've gotten some like amazing ideas. And I know everybody listening has too. People are like, oh, wait, if I can just do the essentials drawer, not junk drawer. It does it. You open it and you don't feel like immediately chaotic. Like I have to dig to find this one thing.
It motivates you.
Yeah.
And you just feel better than everyone when you're looking for something and it's there. You're just like, gosh, I'm really put together.
Right. I'm so on top of it.
I'm so on top of it. How is the other half living? Because this feels good.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like it can, like we overcomplicate simplifying sometimes, and it doesn't all have to happen overnight. It won't all happen overnight, but there are little things you can do to eventually get your spaces and your home routine ready that just help you navigate through your day. And it's just not even a thought to you, all the things you have to do in your house, because it's set up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and I'd love for you to tell the listeners where they can find you, follow you, and learn more about you too, because you guys definitely want to follow her. Her Instagram's awesome, and she always has tips on there too.
Thank you. Yes, I would say our main platform is for sure Instagram at RiOrganize, RiOrganize, a little play on my name. And then pretty new to TikTok. Don't judge me. I'm like getting into it. I watch it way more than I post. So I'm like, just got to get it going. Anyways, so we're on TikTok, and then our website, RiOrganize.com, shares about our services that we offer. And we have 2 collections out right now. The Ria Safford collection on Amazon by iDesign. It's a wooden wire kitchen and pantry collection. I'm so proud of that. And then in a partnership with a company called U Brands, we created an office collection that is in like 820 Targets, and it's online, and it's available through the end of June.
Awesome. Oh, that's so good.
Yes.
Yeah, I got to look into the office thing too. Because I feel like our office right now is the place where we just randomly put stuff because we're not in there that much. So it's like,
we're so guilty of that too.
I'm like, okay, just throw it in the office.
Outside of mind. I know.
Yeah. And hence why I'm on a floor in a bedroom right now. But our office doesn't have good lighting either. So I always look like I'm like in a dingy room podcasting. So I'm like, we have to get some lighting set up.
Ring light. I'm totally the same.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. This was such a pleasure.
Yeah, it was so fun talking to you. And I'll have all of the links, how to find you, follow you, get in touch with you, posted in the show notes. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for listening. We are officially in June, which every June I like to do a episode with a male. I usually always have a couple dads on. And so this month we're actually going to do a vasectomy episode, and I bring on James Berry. You guys remember him from the organ meat episode, and he's going to be coming on, and we're not necessarily going into like the science of vasectomies and stuff like that, but just sharing the personal story and journey of it, because it is one of the number one ways that people who have decided to no longer have children, it's like one of the number one ways of birth control after a certain age for couples. So he's going to come on and share his experience with it and why it should be normalized being talked about, and just a lot of the physical, emotional, and mental aspects that go into it from a male point of view. So I'm super excited for you guys to hear from him. I always enjoy my conversations with him. I feel like he's somebody that every time we get on, we could just talk forever about a million different things. And the podcast definitely goes like a couple different areas, just because that's how we end up talking. We're passionate about a lot of the same stuff. So it was really good to catch up with him and to have this conversation. So I can't wait for you to check it out. All right, everybody, have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.